Welcome back. The first episode of The Road to the Whale for the 2021 season. I'm Luke DeVoe. I'm joined as always by Ben Klein. We look a little different today. You can actually see us. Today we preview the year ahead. We'll welcome Cheshire Rams head coach Anthony Giusto to the program. We'll take a look at the conferences, have some fun with over-unders. We'll fill in some blanks and get ready for opening day. Benny, we're here. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm overwhelmed by the sheer amount of games that we have coming up in short amount of time. There's not a day off. I don't know how the rundown's going to happen, but I'll do my best.
Well, next Sunday is a planned day off, but the following day there's like 25 games for
right. So we have like 20-something games on Saturday, 20-something games on that Monday, and I believe Sunday is Valentine's Day.
Yes, that is true. You should buy a gift for your wife if you haven't already.
I don't really know how I'm going to handle that one. So where we left off, Benny, it was a tough to say the least, end of the season last year. I remember sitting in my classroom and I posted, I got word from the war room that this was happening kind of before it got out, and I posted it, and I really, jockeyed with the idea of releasing it because I didn't want to be the person to break the hearts of so many kids, and it sucked. And
I mean, we're past the 12 months, I think, from when that announcement was made, and then we had all the Jake Walker petition that got I want to say 1 billion signatures on it. 12 months later, I mean, look at the world now.
It blew up. I was talking with a coach yesterday. We never thought we'd be where we are right now, that we're even questioning whether parents could go into games and things like this, that the season wouldn't have started by December, but we're Americans and this is where we are now. So we're entering a new season, a different feel season, a 12-game regular season for most teams. There's still some teams that are not playing a 12-game regular season. What's that noise? Is that my home?
Sounds like a toy or something.
This is crazy.
A little jingle. It's Christmas time, I guess.
All right. So we're entering a new season. We have some new staff members. Tim Nash has joined us. Tim was behind the curtain for so long, and he's coming out. He's revealing himself, and he was CTHS Hockey FCAC for so long, and now he's going to be covering predominantly the FCAC, but he brings a lot of passion. He's really, really into it, and I have to figure out what that is, Benny. Pause this thing because I'm going to lose my mind if I don't figure out what that noise is. All right. Sorry about that, folks. We're back. Tim's here. Tim, out of respect for his son, Ben, who was a phenomenal goalie for Greenwich, he didn't want to come out. He didn't want people to know who he was and put the attention on Ben. So that's why he was how he was. And
right. And I would say still very fair in terms of his opinions and judgments of the other teams in the FCAC. He's a big Darien guy, New Canaan guy. He loves, the Crew Crop, the Westville Stanfords of the world. So despite Ben playing, I think he did a good job of
showcasing some of the D3 teams in the FCA.
Right.
Giving Norwalk McMahon love and teams like that. So
and that's always been an area of the state that you and I, for the most part, have not been able to get down to or over to, depending on the part of the state, because it's most of the teams are playing an hour away from where we live.
Right.
So I think that'll be a big help.
A 3:50 start at the Darien Ice House isn't always the easiest to get to. Also, some news within our staff. Jesse Peters started his own podcast, the High School Hockey Podcast with Coach Peters. He's already had 4 episodes out there. He's done a nice job with that, getting a lot of different guests on, putting a different spin on what we do. And Jesse recently, as far as yesterday, which was Saturday, released a scholarship that's potentially going to go to a senior in the state. He's selling T-shirts with his podcast logo on it to raise money for that senior. And I think he already sold 5 or 6 shirts in the first day. So go out there, get a shirt. Hopefully it'll be you as the senior that will be scholarshiped. So let's jump around the state a little bit. We have some team changes. WMRP is no more. The Rice Bus, the Eagles, they're still the Eagles, the Weathersfield Eagles now. No more WMRP, and they really went out on top. When I started this thing, Ben, WMRP was, they were RMR, I think, at one point. Weathersfield.
Yeah, they were RMR when I was
independent. But they were bad. I mean, they were bad for a long time. And if you didn't catch the Coach Peters podcast when he talked to the Rice Bus guys, they talk about it in much, great length than I can. But they really turned it around. And we're just a powerhouse for the last couple of years. Rocky Hill, Middletown, Plainville, Haddam, Killingworth is now the Rocky Hill Co-op, the Terriers.
The RHMPHK.
Yes, it rolls right off the tongue.
Yeah.
They added Haddam Killingworth from the Lyman Hall Co-op. We'll talk about it. So Lyman Hall now is solo. It is weird. Ben said yesterday, he texted me, it's weird to not type LHK and actually out Lyman Hall.
I'm definitely going to say LHK at least 5 times this year because it's just like that's what it's been.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Husi, our road warriors this year, our pond hockey players. They added Litchfield to their co-op. I think Dino said they added like 9 new players in the off season. And then Newtown is no longer an independent. They linked up with New Fairfield, who used to be part of the NFI co-op. And I know that has to like irk Esposito a little bit because more than anybody else in the state, Paul Esposito prided himself in being an independent, and he wrote it out as long as he could. They just didn't have the numbers. I mean, there were some images coming out of Danbury last year where it looked like they had an infield on their bench. So it was something they had to do.
Yeah.
What else here, Benny? Lead me through the next one.
While we're not really focusing in on divisions this year because there's no state tournament, which we'll chat about briefly, there are some teams that have sort of adjusted what kind of schedule they're going to be playing. So technically, like Sheehan has moved up from D3 up to D2. We'll play a lot of the D2 teams. And then E.O. Smith and Connard have both really moved down a step, even though they're going to be playing, to some extent, some of the more similar teams that they're accustomed to playing. More of a D3 schedule for those 2 squads.
Yeah, what was interesting is E.O. Smith, Tollin, and Connor made that announcement last year. I remember posting that. And then the Sheehan announcement, it didn't happen until recently. I don't believe the Sheehan announcement came out until they made that decision that we were going to be playing mostly conference or only conference.
Right.
You look at the document, their name was added, obviously post haste. So yeah, I think this is the right place for Sheehan to be from the get-go. They're absolutely loaded. We'll get to them a little bit more later. Not playing at all. I've been kind of trolling the ECC Twitter account as best as I could because I think it's absolutely appalling that after everything the Eastern Connecticut Eagles did for that conference as a co-op that went from nothing when they were Fitch, whatever the hell they were, and now became the Eastern Connecticut Eagles, went on an incredible run with an absolute offensive juggernaut of a team and won a state title for that conference. And then for them to leave them out in the dust because, co-ops can't play is ridiculous. Co-ops are playing all over in other conferences. And
with newly formed co-ops that are playing.
Yeah, Rocky Hill wasn't even a thing last year, and they're playing this year. And the ECC is screwing over those guys, so that stinks. Chapaug's not playing this year as well. Just frustrating that those guys can't get going, but there's so much we can control. But I will continue my troll job.
And we were just saying about how we're going to screw up LHK probably a couple times this year. We've got some new mascots that are bound to get screwed up. Also, we've got Glastonbury now going against the Guardians. Guilford.
So on Glastonbury, I wrote multiple times the Glastonbury Gladiators. I think that sounds way better. I think alliteratively it sounds way better. And I keep writing Glastonbury Gladiators. So I will call them the Gladiators on multiple occasions.
Guilford has rid themselves of Indians. That's been a little bit of a conversation point for some other teams throughout the state. They will now be known as the Grizzlies, the Guilford Grizzlies.
I don't hate that.
Milford will be going as the Seattle Mariners, and they have a interesting sort of theme with their jerseys and logos and stuff. Rocky Hill is going as the Terriers. That actually is the mascot of Rocky Hill, so that makes sense. It's usually a little bit easier. Luke is referring to Newington as the Newington football team this year.
Well, when I reached out to Newington, they kind of said, well, they're the Indians, right? And they haven't been one of the ones that's fully come out and denounced the name. And they kind of just said, we're just sort of going with it. And it hasn't really been addressed. So we're going to call them the Newington hockey team, or football team was me being cheeky. But
Watertown is going to drop it at some point.
Yeah, they have to drop it by some point, but I believe they're going to stick with it for the rest of the year. They gave them like a summer 2021 end date or something like that. So I mean, it's just easier when you're writing the rundown and things like that to be able to refer to a mascot than keep saying the team name. So
and where are we with North Haven?
North Haven is standing firm. in their
They will forever be known as the Indians. They will be the last.
Despite that
Indians.
Twitter account that wants them to be the North Haven Brickers, which I said would be the worst possible mascot for a basketball team in the history of mascots, the Brickers. So Bricklayers would be worse.
Yeah. So aside from some mascot changes, we've got some location changes, not in terms of where the teams are actually from, but where they're going to be playing. Pete from the Register and Game Time, I think, did a great job of highlighting all the maneuvering that these teams have had to do. Because for one, you've had a lot of teams playing out of prep schools, which are not allowing, high school teams to play out of them.
Colleges,
and you've got some in colleges as well. So you've got a lot of maneuvering.
Yeah, I bookmarked Pete's page so that I can quickly reference where.
I mean, the Northford is just jam packed to the gills with teams playing out of there. I think it's, what are we up to? Over 10 teams?
No, I think it's seven high school teams right
now. 7 high school temes. So that's huge.
All the youth teams and all the juniors teams, everybody else that plays that place is mobbed. God help them keep that place clean.
Yeah, Cheshire will come down Whitney Avenue and then head up to Skip and Mix to get to the Lou and Hamden. They'll be playing out of there this year. When we talk to Coach Giusto, I'm sure we'll address that maneuvering.
Yep.
Watertown is going to go a little bit south and start playing out of the rings, we've got a couple teams out of the rings now. It's like little Northford, more or less.
There's a lot of teams there.
Yeah, Guilford is, I think it's still potentially unclear as to where they're going to play a lot of their games.
I've heard both Bennett and Northford for Guilford, and their schedule right now only has like 9 games, and they're predominantly, most are on the road. I think like 6 out of the 9 are on the road or something like that.
Right. Xavier's going to play at Champions. We've got Glastonbury going to Newington. Farmington obviously can't play at Avon anymore, so they're going to the ISCC. E.F. Smith will be playing at South Windsor, and then Woodstock. I believe last night was their first scrimmage at the Rose Garden.
They scrimmaged Jake King at the Rose Garden yesterday. I believe SGWL won. That was a good win for us.
They did, I think.
So a lot of shifting, and it's the nature of where we're at right now. On the coaching front, we had a horrible offseason. Eddie Lemaire, St. Joe's, and Chris Rurik, Greenwich both passed away. And anytime those kind of things happen, it sends a ripple through your program. And obviously the rallying cry is we're going to win for coach and things like that. And I don't think when I'm reading over this, and there's other people, this summer we lost Brian Deneen, we lost Bobby Sorensen, West Haven Lifer. This was really a bad offseason. It seems like just around the world, a lot of people are dropping like flies, and this stinks. But the resounding thing, what I was getting at is the positive stories that come out about these guys. I mean, these people were beloved. These were coaches that were absolutely adored and beloved by their players, their programs, their communities. And, I didn't know Eddie as well, but I worked pretty close with Chris Rurik over the last few years, getting us press passes for the Winter Classic and talking to him almost on a regular basis. And what a good guy, just a good all-around guy. And, really elevated that brand of Greenwich hockey, kind of giving a facelift to Dorothy Hamill, the getting the TV crew in to do the broadcasts, and both Coach Lemaire and Coach Rurik, incredibly going to be missed. Chris Nelson, former assistant for Eddie Lemaire, will take over for St. Joe's. Jack Duffy will take over for Greenwich. Both bring a very strong hockey acumen to their respective teams, and I think they're both going to do great jobs with those teams. Rocky Hill needed a head coach, right? New team. So David Dubose, who was a former WMRP assistant, he's going to be taking over there for Rocky Hill. And then Andy Townsend's back at Massac after formerly being there for 13 years in a very odd coaching carousel offseason. Sinibaldi stepped down. We like Sinibaldi, great guy. He was really good to us. His assistant, Zach Vidmosco, I'm calling him the Carlos Beltran of CTHS hockey, because Zach was named head coach or interim coach or whatever for like a 2 or 3 month span, and then all of a sudden he was out of the picture. So then Andy stepped back in. I believe Andy was coaching the girls team, and now he's taken over there, and just a world of knowledge from being around high school hockey forever. Andy Townsend there. So those are our new head coaches in the state this year. And yeah, that's kind of where we're at. So I wanted to talk quickly before we jump on with Coach Giusto, some COVID adjustments. it's going to be a lot different if you're playing hockey this year in Connecticut.
Yeah, I think one of the things that is just like a change to almost the entire game is that the kids will be wearing masks, and they're going to be issuing periodic mask breaks, which I certainly get it. I'm a mask guy myself, but I think from a momentum standpoint, that's really good.
You have it on right now
because I'm in my house by myself.
Yeah, fake mask guy. Fake.
Yeah. But I think it's really going to be interesting with the momentum changes and some of these teams that don't have, a huge, jam-packed bench. They're going to get a break, every couple of minutes. Or I read at one point what the actual times are after, when the whistle's going to be blown for a mass break. But it's really going to be interesting. A team on the run, has to put the puck in the net. Otherwise, 10 seconds later, it could be a whistle, and now your momentum's killed for 60 seconds, or however long the break is going to be.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. You got a team pinned back. They can't clear the zone. And then finally you get a face off. And normally they'd still be a little gassed, especially a team, like you said, that's not that deep. Now it's fair game, so that's definitely something teams are going to have to get used to. No fans. That's been a hot button issue. If there's fans out there that are very angry, and rightfully so. Listen, I get it. If you've lived your whole life, watched your kid play hockey, not seeing them play their senior year or something like that, that's heartbreaking. There's no question about that.
Right. And I think the hope is that you're going to go through the month of February with no fans, and then hopefully we're in a spot where
all the while people are getting vaccinated, hopefully.
Exactly. So that's part of, I think, the rationale for that. And then, come March, there will still be games, and hopefully they'll allow some, whether it's, even if it's one or two parents per kid, we don't need like a student section, even though I'm sure Davey would love for that to happen by the end of the year. But if you can get one or two parents in for the last couple of weeks of the season, I think parents would be, you take what you can get at that point.
Yeah. Hockey parents innately are a venomous creature, and they are not going to back down lightly. That's their nature. No. I can't wait. I think you're going to need a cop in every parking lot, because I know they're going to. I can just see it now. Some tech savvy dad is going to have Live Barn hooked up to a big ass TV. They're all going to be
tailgating
the same way we see the tailgates at the big games. So.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be easy to, this would no longer be a very long tailgate, because the kids can only come into the rink, like, I want to say 10 or 15 minutes before.
It's longer now. That was during the first phase. It's a little longer now pre-game.
So even so, you're not going in, hours before a game, or, you're not hanging out in the locker room or the lobby or whatever anymore. It's okay. You're coming ready to play, like us coaching baseball, you don't sit and get dressed. I mean, it's a different aspect, but you get to the field, you do your warm-ups, your stretches, and then you start playing.
Yeah. And to the opposite end, that them saying the parents are going to congregate in the parking lot, that's a negative of this. To the positive of keeping the fans out, I find it hard to believe a lot of hockey dads aren't going to go and stand next to their buddy. I think, there's a lot of people that, we see it now. I'm hearing reports of some people that are sitting in the lobby in some of these rinks, just dropping kids off. And at Northford was where I got the report. They're sitting there without their masks on or their masks down. So as for the 99% of good hockey parents that are going to abide by the rules, there's going to be that 1% of idiots. That's not.
Right. I mean, we've already had, I think, 3 games postponed due to COVID. And it's not necessarily just going to be at the rink. It's going to be in somebody's backyard. They had, 12 people over. It was a small family party, and one person got sick. That kid plays on the team. That team is now screwed for X number of
I think
days.
I know of 4 teons right now that have had some issues. But I'm sure.
Yeah, I think there's just been 3 actual postponements. Based on what's on the CIC schedule. So that'll certainly be a factor. And I think that, aside from the masking the fans and the pre-arrival thing, I think it is what it is. But I think the biggest change for this year is that you're no longer playing for a state championship. Yep. And you're going to be playing, in theory, the conferences are scheduling conference tournaments, which, will be something, which is better than nothing, rather than just playing, 12 games and then you go home. It gives you something to play for. But that will be a big thorn in people's sides, I guess.
Well, there's a lot
Having
of people
lost
say,
out.
another coach I talked to was kind of like, listen, you got 15 D1 teams. If you just play a regular season with D1 teams and then you have a quick little tournament, is it that big of a difference? I think it gets a little different when you're dealing with the D2s and D3s, but as they can't argue regionalization for the season as long as Fairfield Prep and ND Fairfield are playing in this SEC, because they literally have Fairfield in their name. So arguing that it's kind of, I get it, and I actually think, talking to some people, I think there could be something really great that comes out. Like, I'm really excited for the SEC D2 tournament. I think that's going to be an electric tournament with a lot of evenly matched teams. So I think this is the best thing that ever happened to the FCAC. The fact that you don't have all of the D3 teams getting clobbered by the D1 teams, and now they all have a legitimate shot. I think there's a lot of positives that could come out of this.
Yeah, and I think you're going to, like we were talking before, I think before we came on, is that, based on not having the state tournament and the conferences acting like they would in a regular season, even though the FCAC, I think, was going to make some changes as to who can play who or how often you had to play somebody. But you're going to see, like, on a nightly basis, for the most part, very comparable teams playing each other. You're not going to have the, Greenwich playing Wilton or, name a, I'm not just picking on Wilton, but the examples I'm going for. Right. I mean, it's just like it's just not the best situation. So now you're going to get Greenwich Darien, and then you're going to get Richfield New Canaan, and then you're going to get Prep. I mean, you're playing, pretty much comparable teams the whole season now, which I think will be good. But yeah, that's the plan for the postseason for now. And I mean, things could evolve. Do I think that they could all of a sudden say, "Oh yeah, there is going to be a state tournament"? I don't. If anything, I think depending on how the next couple of weeks go, they might say we're not going to do a conference tournament. Right. If it's worse or there's just like a lack of compliance. I mean, one thing that I brought to you with all the changes is like, what are the rules if somebody doesn't wear a mask or they're
put in place so it's not
right or like
on the fly as you go.
And it's going to be tough for, I think, the refs to police that sort of thing. I mean, they're going to have to be the bad guys in all this.
You could have refs that aren't wearing their masks, right?
Yeah, you could, and I guess it's kind of just the way it is.
Well, you're also going to have which we see in college basketball all the time, the coach wearing the mask the whole time, and then when he has to yell the most, he pulls it off to yell, which is like defeats the entire mask. I can see a few. Yeah. I can see a few of our beauties doing that.
You're gonna have it below their nose. It's I mean, and to some extent, not that I have a ton of contact with the coaches or the players or anything. That's why I think most of us are going to try to cover as most as we can from home, even with no fans. Just from a safety standpoint, your wife works in a hospital. I see a ton of people in what I do for work. We don't want to get anybody sick or get sick ourselves.
Yeah, if I'm going to a game, I'm going and stand in a corner by myself. We're not doing players for the game. If we do one of those, we'll send out a shirt, we'll mail it. Get in, get out, cover the game, make it real simple. We're going to move on. We are going to be joined by head coach Anthony Giusto of the Cheshire Rams. All right, we are here with Cheshire Rams head coach Anthony Giusto. Coach Giusto, not only the Cheshire Rams head coach, but he is the GM of Newington Ice Arena, and he is the founder of the Connecticut Rink Owners Association. Coach, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, so Luke and I were just talking about some of the changes that are going to be heard and felt throughout the course of this upcoming season. But as we just kind of alluded to, you're more than just a coach. You're essentially running a rink. What's it been like to sort of deal with the changes from the state and from CIAC and things like that in terms of Newington's arena?
It's been a challenge. We started this association going back in November when youth hockey was pretty much shut down. And I come at it from really three different sides. I run Newington Arena. I'm president of Central Connecticut Youth Hockey. So we were impacted, which was shut down. And obviously I coach Cheshire High School. So, I'm kind of on all three sides of it. So we're facing different challenges from every one of those sides. The impact of youth sports being shut down for 2 months was real tough for us. And from a rink side, losing revenue for 2 months was extremely difficult. And now all the new protocols that we have to put in place to make sure that we could open up safely, open up, we still have to make money at the end of the day. So there's been a lot of different protocols put in place. The basis for starting the association, myself, Bob Crawford, who runs the Champions Rinks, and Vito Luciano from Sono, forms association to make sure that all the rinks in the state, or at least all the private rinks in the state, were operating under the same guidelines, or loosely the same guidelines. The last thing we wanted to do was to reopen up, have rinks doing things differently, and then a month or two later get shut down. We all know the impact that it happened last year when high school hockey got shut down. The first time before there was closure in the season. The last thing we wanted to do was reopen, start a season, and then get shut down again. So the association really is to just ensure that rinks are doing things the right way across the board, to ensure the safety of the players, to ensure the cleanliness of the facilities, and just to share resources across the board for all rinks. It's been a great start to the association. We're still working through the kinks with some of the municipal rinks, but for the most part, it's been really good. We've been working with Connecticut Hockey Conference on the youth side. We've been working with Glenn Lungarini at CIAC on the high school side, and we've been working with Connecticut Park and Recs for municipal rinks. So we're kind of touching a lot of different aspects of the rinks. When we come up with these guidelines that we set.
Sure. And you're in also a position where you had to change rinks for Cheshire. Now you'll be playing out of Hamden this year. What other adjustments have you had to make from a coaching perspective, with having to wear masks and kids being spread out and so on and so forth?
The message all along has been, it's just a different season. We're rolling with the punches every day, from, doing daily checks of the players, questionnaires about how they're feeling, to wearing masks everywhere, to trying to distance within rinks, to always, thinking ahead, meeting with different ADs when they're coming to our rink, about protocols that their schools might have. So every day it's different. Every day there's challenges. The message that we've been having to our kids all along is there's going to be adversity throughout the year. We just got to roll with the punches every single day. And, one rink might want you to show up fully dressed. One rink might want you, not using a locker room. So there's going to be adversity. The days of showing up an hour and a half early to the rink and stretching out and throwing the ball around just isn't going to happen this year. It's going to be show up, get dressed, get on the ice, play the game, and get out. And, I think that'll help us be a little bit more mentally strong. You're not getting into your usual routine every game, but we're rolling with the punches.
All right. So to that point, Benny's our resident medical expert. So I'm going to stick more to the hockey side. We'll play our two-man game here. What are you guys looking like this year? You return a ton of offense from last year's team. You got Nick coming back, and Thor and Aiden, and some new bodies. Who are you leaning on this year? Who are you excited about? How are the boys looking this year?
I like our team this year offensively. We all know the struggles we had late in the year last year, putting the puck in the net, and that's really been our big message, even in practice, was doing the little things to make sure that we can be more effective offensively. But just watching the growth of Nick Vasilyevs, who was a junior captain last year, who stepped up to be our leading scorer, and then just looked dominant out there right now. And 2 preseason games, he's put the puck in the net a couple of times. Thor Novoselic, a little bit more grit than Nick, but the same type of offensive ability.
Well, his name is Thor.
So you kind of have to have a little grit when your name's Thor.
Yeah, you gotta play the handers out. Yeah.
And then Aiden Gaudette plays a little different style of both of them. He's a very physical presence. He's the kind of kid that's going to post up in front of the net, score some of those dirty goals. So I think all three really complement each other. But we're going to rely heavily on those three to be our offensive leaders this year. I mean, they were our top 3 leading scorers last year, but now it's just going to be taking that to the next level and contributing a little more offensively. We have a lot in the pipeline as well. We have 2 other seniors who are filling a great role, a role that I like to have as those third line checking forwards, the high energy guys, Mark Lindner and Michael Karen. Smaller in stature, but they play with a lot of energy. They're our best forecheckers. They're our best penalty killers. And that team can't be successful without players like that to fill roles. And then we have some young talent mixed in as well. We have Nick's brother, Evan Vasilyevs, who's stepping into getting some playing time away, a skilled forward, not as fast or flashy as Nick, but sees the ice really well, is a very good playmaker. And kid like Aiden Lark, who was a freshman last year, made our team, got limited playing time, but now is slotted into one of our top two lines. And then we got another brother combination, Will Gaudette, who again was a freshman last year. Had playing time last year and only helped him as a freshman, and now he's one of our top two line guys. So I really like our team offensively. We gel in real well. We look great in practice. And, scoring 3 goals the first scrimmage against Glastonbury and 4 goals yesterday against Newington bodes well for our offense.
Yeah, so the elephant in the room, sort of the absence of Nicky Marangola. Not that big of a loss. Nicky's for what he was for you for the last 2 years. He's the 4-year starting point guard on your basketball team. He's your ace pitcher. I don't want to keep using too many analogies. He's your quarterback, but you feel that loss in a lot of different ways, I'm sure. How are you making up for it, and who's stepping up to attempt to fill those pads, because it can't be easy.
Yeah, you don't replace Nick Marangola with one player. Obviously as a goaltender, somebody else is going to fill those shoes, and we're not expecting our goalies to be Nick Marangola.
Yeah, no pressure.
Yeah. As a coach, that's our challenge. How do we become a more defensive team? I'm more of a defensive coach anyway, with defensive style, which does limit our offense at times. But this year, with an inexperienced defense and 2 untested goals, we're really changing the way we're playing. We're bringing our forwards a lot lower in the D zone. So it's really, one player kind of changes the way that we're coaching. It's changing the way that we're approaching our defensive style. And we need the 5 players on the ice and the goalie making up for what Nick Marangola did for us last year. When we were having offensive struggles last year, we were trying to get our forwards fly in the zone, create some offense, try to get the D, getting the puck up ice, knowing that we were going to give up 2-on-1s, non-man rushes, but knowing we had Nick Marangola back there to bail us out. So this year, it's a whole different mindset. The old saying is you coach the team that you have, not the team that you want. And, this year we have the team that has inexperience on the back end and in the net. So, we're going to have to adjust accordingly. But, filling in or stepping in for Nick, we have Amon Chaudhary and Evan Villiers, both junior goalies. Both have been with us since freshman year, so they've seen plenty of shots in practice. They just don't have that varsity experience. It's an open goalie battle right now. They've both gotten even time in the preseason, and they both done.
I think there's something to be said too about having that goalie battle after losing. If you look at a lot of these teams, I was talking to Ben about it, that have one goalie right now, and being able to have 2 guys that are going to push each other, you're only going to get good results out of that. One more thing, and then we'll let you go. Obviously, there's no state tournament this year. That's being felt across the state. So you guys are playing a CCC or SEC schedule. Going to ultimately be playing what I'm presuming is a D2 SEC tournament. Is it still easy to motivate these kids? Are you finding that some of the wind has been taken out from under their sails? Or are they just happy to be playing?
Well, everybody's happy to be playing first, but we've been saying it all along. If SEC, you guys know the teams in the SEC, right, and the teams that are usually there late in the season come tournament time. If you're one of the top 4 teams in the SEC, it's a pretty good chance you're top 5 or 6 in the state come the end of the season. So we know, being there in the end, winning an SEC title, you are going to be one of the top teams in Division II in the state. You look down the list of the teams right now, and there's just some really, really strong teams at the top in the Hand and North Haven and, Brantford that's had a run for the last few years. And everybody's tough. We have battles with Watertown. Doesn't matter if they're good or bad in any given season. Just the SEC conference is tough. There's rivalries. There's teams that you're just used to facing year in and year out and battling with. And, it's easy to motivate the players when you have a schedule like that.
Yeah, it's a weird year. Sheehan moving up, Amity's improved. You mentioned North Haven. I think the D2 level, and this is gonna be a common theme for this podcast. I already told Benny I'm excited for the SEC D2 tournament, and there's a thing later we're gonna talk about. I think it's probably the most exciting conference, save for maybe the top end of the FCAC this year in the state, and we look forward to following it with you. Good luck to the Rams. Good luck to the boys, and I'm sure we'll talk soon. Thanks for coming on.
Great, thanks, guys. Keep up the good work. Thanks, guys.
All right, take care.
Take care. Stay safe. All right, so we are going to touch on each of the conferences in the state this year, as we've talked about a couple times now. The state's really getting away from divisions, given that there's no state tournament, although there are some classifications still. We'll start with the FCAC, which is, arguably the powerhouse in the state at this point in time. At the D1 level, there are just some unreal teams out there that if there was a state tournament, you'd be looking at probably 4 of them hosting in the first round.
Possibly 5.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Just a juggernaut list of teams. I look at it, and it's only 6 teams. It's what we've always wanted. We've always wanted the idea of these teams battling each other. It's tough for St. Joe's and to a lesser extent Fairfield this year, because I think St. Joe's is vastly improved from the team they had last year. And Fairfield returned everybody except for the goalie, but Grace looked pretty good in this first go around.
Yeah, I mean they just battled with New Canaan. I know that the playing time was all over the place for both squads, but they lost by a goal in overtime, so that might speak to something. But yeah, I mean with New Canaan at the top and Darien at the top. I believe both of us have Darien entering as the state's number 1 heading into the season, although the register has Prep as the number 1 team, which is fine. It's early, and we'll see how the first couple of weeks shake out, because in these first couple of weeks, these FCX D1 powers are like clashing against each other. I think they might all play each other in the first 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think they're getting those out of the way. Darien, I think, is the you failed to realize New Canaan was the number 1 FCAC champ last year, and they didn't really lose much. They lost a couple kids to early exit. They brought back Bo Johnson, and who's one of the best goalies in the state. And they're top. You take give me Erickson, Moore, and Dyer against Dean, Gamble, and Carter Ellis, and watch those 2 lines go head to head. And I don't think that's must-see TV. So, and then you throw in Danielson, Kovalev, Hutchins group over with
Zolan and that. Yeah.
With Zolan and that, and Zolan and West Zolan. Yeah. So it's just the FCAC is so much fun this year. Yeah. Fairfield bringing back Swanson and Reese Davies and Brendan Cartney. I just think it's a really, really fun league to watch. And then kind of in the weeds right now is Ridgefield, who kind of had it down for their standards. But Gallagher's the best coach in the state, or one of the top coaches in the state.
And they're 2 years removed from going 20-0.
Correct. Will Stewart's coming back. I think he's going to have an absolute monster season for them. I'm hoping he gets a little bit of help. The one thing that hurts Ridgefield a little is losing Michael Conchatori for the season to an injury. So that one took the wind out of their sails a little bit, but really, really good conference. It is what it should have been all along, with these teams playing each other, maybe playing some teams like Prep out of conference. Love the idea that we don't have to see the slaughter fests that we've seen for years. And that's not taking anything away from those teams. I was thinking about Norfolk McMahon the other day, who went, I want to say they went undefeated last year, except for playing all these games. And they had such a great year, but the record didn't show it because they had to play all these games. And you could argue that it made them more battle tested, but this is the way it should be.
Yeah. And I think even at the D2, D3 level that they've kind of combined for this year, there's still plenty of talent there. We just touched on North McMahon. West Hill should still be strong. Trumbull, what you get out of Staples and Wilton, I guess, is to be determined.
Yeah,
but
so it's a weird group because they finally have their
small,
chance.
It's not like the CCC South has 10 teams, and the SEC, I don't know the number of teams on top of my head, but between D2 and D3, there are a huge number of teams. Here we've got 5. Which makes things a little bit interesting.
And it's a good year because I think if West Hill Stanford had the team they had last year, they would have walked through these 5 teams. It wouldn't even have been a game. You could have argued that West Hill Stanford should have been in that top division, but they lost so much. They still returned Bacco and Healy and Osterhaus and net, but I think there's a lot of parity between the teams. I actually think Staples is going to be pretty good this year. Normac lost a lot. Wilton's going to be your Trinity Catholic this year. I think there's only 8 or 9 players on the team with one goalie, about 3 kids who haven't seen much ice time. So Wilton could struggle. And then I picked Trumbull to win that in my previews. Watching Trumbull against West Haven the other night scared the hell out of me. We'll move on to the SEC, SWC, the land of Carbone. I call it. You don't call it
that? I've never referred to it as that.
Okay.
But at the D1 level, you're looking at the same foes you're traditionally looking at. I mean, the traditional powerhouses of the Preps that are in West Haven. And I really think those are your 2.
I do.
And then you've got the NDFs, Xaviers, the West Havens, maybe. And then I think at the bottom, you're looking at Immaculate and Hampton, just based on what's there.
I think you're very fair with that assessment. I think Prep and Notre Dame are the top 2. I really like Notre Dame Fairfield this year. I know you kind of rip me every time I say that. I feel like you say that a lot. I just like their team this year. I think you're spot on with Xavier and West Haven being that next tier, returning some bodies in kind of completely different teams. Xavier, I think, is stronger from the Goldmouth out from Solomon to, and then I think West Haven's still learning in net. Miller had his first year, and then just based on personnel, Hamden and Immaculate are probably the next tier. Though Immaculate has probably one of the best players in the state in Timmy Hayden, but they're coming off a 4-win season, and now they're playing a challenging schedule here. And I just don't know where the scoring is going to come from him. Bryce Riccitelli and Jesse Fracasso, 2 talented kids, but another team debuting a new goalie. Not returning much in terms of point production, and to go
or on defense either.
Yeah, right. I think that'll be an interesting one.
But what will be sort of a crutch, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the SEC SWC D1 postseason experience will not look like we traditionally have with just the top 2 teams play each other for a championship.
Everybody makes it all 7.
Right.
7.
So you could have a rough regular season and then make a run late, and who knows what happens.
Yeah, I
wouldn't bank on that, but it's possible.
No, but talking with a coach, that you bring up some great points, and this is universal, not just specific to the SEC, because they're playing a season where everybody makes the tournament. You might not see coaches going all out in every game necessarily. And I'll temper that with the example of, if you have a young goaltender who you want to make sure is rested and primed, ready for that tournament, and you're playing an 8-game schedule, and a coach I talked to is considering doing something like this, maybe playing them 8 out of 12 games, getting some other guys some work, making sure they're still seeing enough pucks that they're not out of practice, but also not just totally worn down. This season's going to happen quick. There's going to be games on top of games. I'm looking at it from a rundown.
I think it's only roughly 6 weeks.
Right. So keeping guys fresh is huge, but also having the ability to have everybody still in the race at the end is really, really what makes this season unique. Moving down to the SEC SWC Division II ranks, it doesn't get any more fun than this. I think just the sheer amount of teams that can win games. Now, to me, I think you agree, but you could feel free to disagree. I think Hand is the overwhelming favorite because of what they bring back in all phases.
Both of us have Hand in our registered top 10.
Correct. And I think right now they're probably the only Division II team that warrants being in the top 10. I think there's a couple that are on the top 15, you could argue. So I do think Hand is the favorite. That said, Amity's going to be a lot better this year. Cheshire, we just talked to Giusto. I think they bring back a lot. You look at Lyman Hall, they're always competitive. North Haven has one of the best teams. Avina's finally got to the point where he's got his team and he's got his guys ready to go. And then you look at Sheehan coming up, which is just –
You got Brantford, despite losing a ton of scoring and defense, they have one of the best goalies in the state. Another team to really keep an eye on is East Haven. East Haven brought on those 2 senior transfers. They complement guys like Benny and Amatruda and Rocco Plano on D, Duncan Ryder. I think East Haven could shock some people. I still think there's a couple teams that'll struggle this year. WP's lost some guys, North Brantford, Guilford. But again, on any given night, I wouldn't want to be playing this schedule and having to play some of these teams. So that's what makes it fun. I think probably aside from FCF D1, this is the specific conference to watch based on you got 8 teams in the hunt that are pretty darn comparable.
Yeah.
With Hand probably leading the top of the cream
It's
of the crop there.
Hand A, and then it's like D, E, F.
Seven B teams, or at the D3 level, it's. I mean, unfortunately, this is probably one of the ones I'm just not head over heels about.
I'm gonna let you go with this.
I don't know. I don't. Maybe it's just me in D3, but these are 6 teams that I mean, somebody's going to come out on top, but I just don't. I don't get excited about these 6 teams for some reason.
I'll take over because I'm the D3 hero. I love covering the SEC
D3 tournaments. Tell me why I'm wrong.
One of my favorite tournaments to cover. You're wrong because Rusty Graniker returns probably one of the best BBD teams we've seen, which isn't saying much, this year, and I think they're a really fun team to watch. I want to see how JBWA plays without Daniel McKiernan and Luke Doobie.
Right.
I think Dante Esposito is going to become a household name this year. And you can't count out an Andy Townsend coached Massick team who returns our D3 freshman of the year. I think they'll be solid. Kenny Mitchell's one of the best young coaches in the state, and I think Milford. I wish Milford didn't lose as much as they do, but they return a decent goalie in Derek Ouellette. New Milford. Logan Lucas coming back in net. That kid is going to be a stone wall for them. I think they'll be competitive. And then my favorite to win the conference, it's mini 6-team conference, is the Newtown, a lot of news, New Fairfield Co-op. And I think they're loaded. Phil Macris coming back. The price of admission alone for SCCSWC is Phil Macris and James Celentano, both 37-point scorers, and Marcus Paltoff in net. I don't really.
In reality, the price of admission is a membership to Live Barn.
True. Also that.
So, I'm not saying that I'm not saying it's weak. I'm just not.
That didn't get you a little bit excited. That I was.
I think what really turned me off. I really hate this Milford logo, and I don't know why.
It's the old Maine Mariners logo.
I know, but I just don't like it, and I think that's really soured my opinion of the entire conference.
I'll tell you what, I like the unis a lot. I think they did a nice job with them. Kenny, take all the hate mail and send it over to BK.
Not as good as Cheshire's new ones that they rolled out yesterday.
Those out last night. Those are probably my new favorite jerseys in the state.
Yeah.
All right, where are we at now? CCC.
CCC, the North. So the North is interesting because it's coming off a season where Farmington actually won the conference championship over Northwest Catholic, and those are probably the 2 teams that you would be expecting to reign towards the top again this year, but then Northwest Catholic just took a big blow with Griffin McCary being out for the season.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
But this is going to be a fun. I mean, we've got 6 teams, so and you got 2 D1s and correct me wrong, there technically would be 4 D2s.
These are
but so there's. I mean, these are pretty comparable teams. I think the other night we made up odds to win the conference. And most of the teams are close.
Yeah, in a year where the Generals lost Arena and Jackson Hull, I don't think coming off of last season I would have just been like, yeah, they're going to win it again. But looking at what they bring back, there's so many underrated players on that Generals team, whether it's Stoneman or Mackie Stambaugh. There's a lot of guys coming back, and they returned the 2-headed goalie monster in Markowitz and Pauling. I kind of like the D2 Generals in this league. I do think Simsbury is going to be a really hard out because I think Simsbury is going to play a really good defensive brand. They have a ton of D-men back. They lost a ton of offense. But
I feel like every time I see Simsbury, they're physically enormous kids. Where like some other kids like on other teams are just like, I mean, I'm not a big guy myself, but like Simsbury is like usually a group of men,
right?
Again, high schoolers.
I found a cool stat, and it's going to be on the rundown on Monday. But I'll give you a spoiler here. I don't even know if it's going to come out before then. They should play all their games out of Simsbury Farms because since 2017, playing out of Simsbury Farms, they're 5-1. So they should play as many as they want out of the farms.
Kind of a small sample size now.
Hey, I'll take it. I'll take that over whatever it is at ISCC. Neil Rodman, South Windsor Bobcats. I think they'll be okay. I think they'll be able to battle, with the East Catholics and the Glastonburys of the world. Glastonbury needs to find a new logo because this random G is bothering me. I like East Catholic. I love Joey Trenholm. I just think they're going to have a big hill to climb after losing Rowan Massey. So yeah, that's kind of it. If we drop down to the South, it's a mess of teams.
We got so many teams here. I mean, and it's. I think the thing with this is that had it still been WMRP,
they would have been.
I think that changes everything. But now you've got the split with Rocky Hill getting Shad and Weathersfield getting Kalewa. Like those, that's like if you were doing like a draft of the players from those two teams, regardless of where they live, that might be the 1-2 punch.
It was like a divorce and who got the TV and who got the couch.
Right, yeah.
So
you take the TV.
But looking at that, and I like, even though it's not a divisional year, my brain still goes to divisions. And if you're in a league that has 16 teams, either split them 8 and 8 would be one logical way, or put all the D1s and D2s together and leave the D3s on their own. It's a little odd to me that Weathersfield is the only Division 2 team in this league. But I agree with you. I don't know that they return enough to be able to night in, night out compete with the Farmington Valleys this year.
Well, yeah, but part of it is also like Weathersfield would be the only D2, but you also have two teams in this conference that just dropped down from 2 to 3.
Correct.
So, that's a factor too. Could you have put, I don't know, would you have put Weathersfield, could they compete in the North? Sure.
I think
there's a lot more, there's less parity, I think, in this conference than any of the others. Well, I think you're going to have some teams that are really going to struggle despite not playing the best of schedules.
Yeah, it is. There's a lack of parity, but it's also still at the end of the day predominantly a D3 conference. But in it, I think you have some really good Division III teams. I think Newington is loaded, and you got Fogarty back. I think Hall Southington is going to have another great year with NBG and Net and some of the bodies they brought back. I think Duncan Hollander is one of the names in the state that people need to know moving forward. And then you look at E.O. Smith with Brian Roy. I mean, that kid is just a freak of nature for what he's able to do at his size. And then like a Frank Genovese Enfield team is always going to be competitive. Tri-Town will put their best foot forward, even though they lost a ton. And then you look at the Wildcats. I know it's only a scrimmage, but the SGWO going all the way out to the Rose Garden and beating a D2 Woodstock team, that's impressive. Speaking of which, let's take a look at our two independents. We have Hussey playing on ponds, eating Dino's pizza, figuring it out. Road Warriors, whatever it takes to get on the ice. Gotta love it. And then you got Woodstock off in Rhode Island. And it's a tough year for these teams. I love the Nutmeg Conference, first of all. So thanks to all those guys who put that together. Tri-Town and SGWL, these guys, the Eagles, a lot of really likable teams. So the fact that these two guys couldn't find a home, and really regionally, geographically, it's hard for these two teams to find a conference. But that's saying they're still going to try to get the season in. I think they're playing less games. I don't think either of these teams have a full 12-game schedule right now. Probably still taking applicants for opponents.
Well, they could probably play the Eastern Connecticut Eagles mock team.
The Eagles are still playing, so maybe they'll pick up some teams there. I don't know if they're allowed to, though. Is the CIAC team allowed to play a team?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
A couple of the state's better players are here. Garen Favreau, coming off a 33-goal season, is a name that people should know by now for Woodstock. For Hussey kid, Zim McAuliffe is really, really strong. He's going to have a nice year. And you have a couple returning goalies in Purdy and Liscombe. So I think these two teams, they're not playing for anything. At the end of the day, maybe they'll play each other in an independent championship at the end of the year or something like that when everybody's playing there. Maybe they should really talk to each other about doing like a best of 3 or something at the end of the year just to close out and give these kids something. But that's kind of where we are. Are we going to run right into our next, or are we going to take a break here, Benny?
I think we're good to go. We're going to do some over-unders. Always a fun conversation. I'll go first. We're going to do 3 each. Okay. The first one is just more pandemic related. Over under the number of games postponed due to COVID, not weather. So you get a big snowstorm and have to say cancels and it doesn't snow. I'm saying the bar at 19 and a half games canceled or postponed due to COVID.
19 and a half?
Yeah.
I think it's going to go over simply because if one team tests positive, they're going to go into quarantine and they're going to have at least 3-4 games wiped out. And that's only one team. And you got to assume we've already seen 4 or 5 teams get hit before the season even started. I'm going over, and I'm fearful that it's going to be well over. I do think there's going to be one or two teams that season gets shut down this year. Not that doesn't finish the year. I hope that doesn't happen, but I'm a realist, and I think that could happen.
And I think part of it is, whether this is actually a factor. In my mind, it is. But so many teams playing at the same place. We talked to Coach Giusto, and a lot of the rinks are trying to get on the same page in terms of like cleaning and sanitation and following the same guidelines. But you're going to still have, I would think, maybe one rink that just has an issue.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right, let me give you one. Under. Now, mind you, it's a 12-game season for most teams, less for some. Under 24 regular season goals scored by any player. And for point of reference, how do I get out of this? I don't know how to work computers. Oh, there we go.
So without even having the data you're going to provide me, I'm going to say under.
Okay.
I don't think goals is much different than points.
Correct.
And I would say that in a shortened season, to average 2 goals a game, if it were to happen, it would not be at the D1 level. I do not foresee that happening due to just the competition, playing the competition. Could I see a Favreau scoring 25 goals? Maybe,
well, they're not going to play
but they're not going to play enough games. So like that's what you're working with.
You look to chew on while you say that. So there were
there's no Daniel McKernan.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 players last year scored more than 24 goals.
Right.
That's a lot of players.
They also played 20 games.
Correct. But some of them were up in the high 30s and 40s.
Right. But that's the Danny McKernan, which I think in this season you just might not see that. And I could be wrong. Okay. But 24 goals in at most 12 games is a lot of goals.
A lot of goals. It's 2 goals a game. Or you're up.
Over under the number of repeat conference champions. And as a refresher, New Canaan won the FCAC, Prep, Brantford, and Sheehan won the SEC SWCs, and then we had Farmington and WMRP win the CCCs. The number of over and under is 3.5.
You're setting it at 3.5, so we have.
And WMRP is excluded.
Well, Sheehan's got to be excluded too because they are in a different division now, so they're going to cancel out. You know what I'm saying?
Not necessarily. Well, right, but they're still factored in as a previous winner.
All right. Well, I don't think that happens. I think Prep very well could. New Canaan, if they could go back to back with the talent the FCAC has, God bless them. But the odds probably say they don't. But they're so good. Over under. I'm going to say under. I'm going to say under because I don't think Brantford does. No, they just lost a lot. I don't think Sheehan does. I think Sheehan is going to be really, really competitive, really, really strong. But I worry about them on the back end. I already said I like Farmington Valley, and then maybe Prep, and then maybe New Canaan. So even if I go New Canaan, Prep, Farmington Valley, that's only 3. So I'm going to go under.
Mm-hmm. You're up.
Oh, sure. I like this one. Over under total wins, Daniel Hand, and I'm setting the number at 9.5. And they play a pretty competitive schedule.
Yeah, I'm going to say over, but I'm saying they're going 10-2. I think that
10-2 schedule. That's saying something.
I think they could play with a lot of the D1 teams.
I do too.
So I mean, you're still going to get some games against some of the lower echelon SEC, SWC D2 teams. I think they're going to run with the D2s. So I could see them winning 10 games. I don't think
they beat Hamden.
Yeah, I would.
Do you think they beat Xavier?
Yes.
You think they beat Sheehan in the opening night?
Yeah, I think so. I think the issue I have with Sheehan is what is Justin Lyon going to be?
Right.
Because you're not playing D3 anymore. You don't get that 5-goal cushion anymore. You're not scoring. Sheehan's not scoring 5 goals in Eric Tillman.
Yeah. No, I agree.
So I would say they will win 10 if they win 9. Is what it is.
Okay, you're up.
Over under wins for Hamden 3.5.
All right. Well, my tires are going to get slashed.
He lives on. No, I'm not going to
their schedule. Their schedule's brutal. You start with a rivalry game with West Haven, then you have Xavier, then you have the NDs back to back, Immaculate, then Prep in hand, West Haven again, then the NDs back to back again, then North Haven, who's a great squad this year, and then Prep. I wish you made it 2.5. I mean, I think they could split with West Haven. I think they could beat Immaculate. Maybe split with ND Fairfield.
And then would you split with Hand in North Haven, maybe?
I think Hand and North Haven are really good. You never know with Xavier. Hamden's funny though. Hamden has these rosters that look like there's nothing, and then they go out and they beat Darien and New Canaan to open the year these past few years. Hamden's 4-0 in their last season opener, so mark that down for tomorrow night against West Haven. I think they go like around 4-8, so I guess over, barely. I'm not confident in that at all. That's a tough schedule, man. That is a brutal schedule.
Yeah, all right, because they have really no games off.
Last one for you. This is so to tell you the magic number here is these three players combined had 99 goals last year. 99 goals. Aaron Kalewa, Tate Fitzmaurice, Garen Favreau. That D2 group. Favreau, John Favreau, Garen Favreau, Tatum Fitzmaurice, Aaron Kalewa, over under 69 goals. Nice.
Hang on.
You're a math guy. I tried to, so that would be 30 goals less than they scored last year.
Right, but I said I'd be contradicting myself because I said nobody will score 24 goals, which would mean the three of these have to each score 23.
Right, so we're right under that number, that threshold. You think it's crazy to see Favreau, Fitzmaurice, and Kalewa each score 23 goals this year? I think they could do that.
I don't think Fitzmaurice is going to get as much as he did last year just based on playing a tougher schedule. Kalewa, I think, could.
7 points last year, Fitzmaurice.
I know, but we're not saying points. We're saying goals now.
Well, goals too. I mean, I think
You didn't say points. You said goals.
I know. But goals.
So I think scoring will he get more points? Favreau would probably be. Kalewa would get the best. Kalewa, I think, has the best chance than Favreau than Fitzmaurice. So I guess I'm going to say under because I said no one will score 24 goals, but I could easily see it happening.
Okay. All right.
And that's some blanks. These are fun. This is a fun subject here. I will go first, and I will start with the CIAC made the blank decision in ending last season.
Oh, geez.
Because you've got people who are like, all those people that signed the petition at that point in time. Obviously, hindsight's 2020, but
I'm going to give you a word, and then we'll discuss. I'm going to say that they made the tough decision to cancel the season. I think if that beauty Glenn Lungarini, he's working his butt off. I know people hate him. He's working his butt off. If he waited like 2 days and everything else shut down, we wouldn't even know his name. It was just, he was so ahead of the curve in terms of ending the season before anybody else. And I think at that point, maybe only the Ivy League had, and the Ivy League cancel everything if somebody has like chicken pox. I think they made a tough decision. Ultimately, you'll see where it went last year. I think they made the right decision. I think you agree with that. I think most people agree with that now, especially when they did the whole thing at CIAC headquarters and like people tested positive from going to that. So that's a whole nother thing. But I think they made the tough decision. I think you're going to have a lot of people not necessarily agreeing with the no parents now, simply because of what the decisions being made at the youth hockey level and allowing parents in there, which is something I'm still on the fence about. So tough decision. The word I'm going for is tough. By the way, this is a segment completely stolen from, pardon the interruption, with Tony Kornheiser and Michael Wilbon. So Ben's first blank is going to be blank is the most fun team in the state to watch. Blank meaning the team. You have to fill in the blank with a team. Got that?
I would go with Hand.
Okay.
Because I think Hand is like, you could easily pick a D1 team and say like, oh, Darien is really fun to watch, or Prep's really fun to watch. I mean, they're all fun to watch, but this team is like going to be firing on all cylinders. And I think is that top D2 team, whereas there's more parity amongst the top of D1. I think this team on the offensive side and the defensive side in that is every single night is going to be, you got to watch Hand play.
Do you think we're giving Hand too much credit considering
No.
Joey DeAngelis has gone in his 67 points from last year? Like, where do those 67 points come from?
Well, it doesn't have to be 67 points because you're playing 2/3 of a schedule. So, it's not like
to be felt.
Yeah, of course. But I think they're going to find ways to put the puck in the net, and I think they're going to be more battle tested. I think I'm excited to see them rise to the occasion.
Okay. All right. Is it my turn? No, it's your turn.
No, it's my turn. Blank is the most fun player to watch in the state.
Oh, see what you did there. Blank is the most fun player to watch. So there's obvious talents. We've Aaron Calais was an easy name to put here. I love watching the way Jamison Moore plays hockey. But I'm going to go kind of off the reservation with this one. And I'm going to say Brian Roy, just because, let's be honest, Brian Roy's a big man. I mean, Brian Roy is a unit, but his puck handling abilities and his elusiveness for someone his size and his ability to just absolutely pick a corner and hammer it, I don't know how he does it. So I watched him the other night on Live Barn, and he is really fun to watch. He's actually pretty quick too. Brian Roy is probably the most fun player to watch for me. I don't know what would happen if you put Brian Roy in a game against a Fairfield Prep. But for the level he's playing at, where he's playing, and he did it last year at the D2 level, so he did it at a decent level. He's very fun to watch. So that's my pick there. All right. Blank, and blank. 3 blanks. Got that? Yes? Blank, and blank would have hoisted plaques this year if the state tournament happened. So right now, on the spot, before the season's even starting, I need to know essentially who your 3 picks would have been if this was a normal season. You're welcome.
Let's see. I will go with Death Taxes Prep.
Okay.
I would take Hand.
Okay.
These 3 I think is almost impossible because there's just so much to consider here. It's a mess. I don't know. Maybe dare I say Newtown? I don't know.
Yeah. No, I don't think that's kind of where I was at. Newtown, maybe a Newington or a Hull Southington.
Yeah. I think you're gonna have you would have a mix of those kind of teams, but I definitely think Hand stands the top D2. Prep, whether they're the top ranked team at the time or not, you rarely bet against them. Right. So those would be my 3 for now. Last one, I am most excited for blank this season.
It's funny. I would have said, and I said this when I went on Jesse's, I would have said Griffin McCary, kid that lost his whole career and now he's got this again. So this one's a little bittersweet. Now, and you could take this question a couple ways. You could say I'm most excited for this to happen this season or this person. I'll give you both. I'll switch and I'll go to Chris Avina. I think he's a guy who's a great coach. He's been very good to us over the years, but his teams have struggled, and I'm really excited to see if he can battle with Hand. And then from the other side, I'm most excited. I'm most excited for the D2 SEC tournament. I said that earlier. I know it's kind of a cop-out answer. I just think that's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm excited for that, and I'm apprehensive that it's all going to happen. And we'll finish with this. Last question. Easy one, or not. This season will be blank. And multiple choice. A shit show, a disaster, better than expected. I'm giving you some choices, but
So I will say this season will be a roller coaster because I think like we've said, there's going to be postponements. We may see, if shit hits the fan, you may see teams seasons get canceled, and that's going to blow up. But you're going to see hockey, You know, there will be games played tomorrow that will count. You will see teams inching towards, you know, winning a conference championship should that postseason experience happen.
Yeah.
And you know, people they're getting what they to some extent wish for. The kids are going to play.
Yeah.
So we're going to take what we can get. At least we'll get something. But I think it's going to be all over the place in terms of the pandemic versus league play versus, you know, how long do we have before either something great happens or something bad happens?
I would agree. All right, that's going to do it for our first episode this year. We're trying this YouTube thing. We'll see if it works. I'd like to thank producer Joe Boyle, as always. Go out and grab a shirt from Jesse, help out his scholarship. I believe we will be coming back with the Senior Class Award with Chris Tornaquindici over at CCSU. More information on that to follow. We're not doing sponsors this year. I've talked about that a little bit. If this season goes down the toilet, I don't want to have to figure out what we're doing with sponsor money. So, hey, if you want to donate. If you don't, that's fine. But we did say we would retain our sponsors for future. So I'd like to thank, as always, Wilson Norwich Oil, Spinal Care CT, IPH, the Danbury Junior Hat Tricks, and always Hamden Sport, Danny Bush, and those guys over there doing incredible jersey things and all your other hockey needs. Well done. For Luke, for Ben, check you later.